we're continuing with the Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers, alphabetical order. Briefly, we'll do Thomas Wolfe, then we'll do Tom Wolfe. They're both American writers, but Tom Wolfe, with just T-O-M for the first name, has got a lot more material. So here's a quote from Thomas Wolfe. What Christ is saying is this: I am thy father's son, and you are my brothers, and this unity binds us all together that makes the earth a family, and all men brothers is love, the unity. So Arnold Toynbee had said the same thing in a way. He said basically the idea that mankind are brothers is based on the understanding that God is our father. Okay, and if God's not our father, then who's to say who's brother? So it's the only thing that'll make peace on earth, and people stupidly reject it. And unfortunately, the alternative is slavery, and that's what's coming. But there's still room to hope. Tom Wolfe, now the great American novelist, he's the best American writer, male writer of the last 50 years. He's got multiple best-selling books like The Right Stuff, Man in Full, Kingdom of Speech, and others. He wrote Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test in 1968 about Ken Casey and the merry pranksters on the bus doing LSD. Ken Casey is a guy who had written One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Okay, his most recent book was Kingdom of Speech. And he felt that the fact that humans can speak unlike any other animal means we should be in a separate kingdom. We're very different from chimps, and that's also true. In that book, he reviews some of the opinions of Charles Darwin and his competitor, if you will, Alfred Russel Wallace, who also discovered so-called natural selection as an early evolutionary theory. Okay, so let's see here. Tom Wolfe says here, let me get myself out of the way a little bit. A lady says, I'm a lesbian, and the man says there's something fishy about that. And then he says there was no winner to World War I. It was the destruction of Europe. Yeah, World War I was like a suicide attempt at Europe. It's sad. It was just stupid. Ayn Rand had said that World War I was the end of the romantic writing style. If you look at that, most of the best novels, they were all written in the 1800s. And then you'll hear the expression, the end of all that after World War I. Because what had happened was the 1800s were still a time of neoclassicism and romanticism. The idea of an individual man and his volition, his desire, made such a big difference in how he lived his life. That one great man, Thomas Carlyle's great man theory of history, could make a giant big difference. And then you go to World War I, where you're sitting in trench warfare, and there's automatics all over the place, and one guy can't do much. And so there was a sort of this idea that the idealism, the individualism of the classics, the ancient Greeks and Romans, and of Christianity really wasn't that powerful. And so that there really wasn't much point and meaning in life or much that you could do. So there was a lot of nihilistic loss of meaning, sadness, and alcoholism after World War I. People were sad. And that's why almost all the writers from that time, they stink. Almost all the artists that became popularized stink. That's also when leftism started building, more socialism, more communism. So it was really a depressing time. And he says, in the USA, wealth peaked, he felt, in 1991, and it's gone down since then. I would say that's a fair statement, because my dad was a real successful doctor in the 1980s, and they were getting paid 3 times or 4 times what we get paid nowadays. They made a lot of money. Those were the good old days for doctors, the golden age for American doctors. All right, Tom Wolfe continues. I started out like most young writers, thinking that great writing was 95% of the author's talent and 5% of content. But you have to write about something. And pretty soon I had those figures really turned around. More like 75% content and 25% ability. Yeah, so, if you want to be worth reading, you got to have something to say. And one of the reasons why there's so few good books is most of the people who know how to write don't have anything to say. And the ones who have something to say don't know how to write it or don't write it. And there's not that many that have something new and useful to say. Like, why do so many doctors, how come they never write books? The reason is they are told these are the books in your field. Based on these books, you take your boards, and they sort of feel like, well, I know everything in my books. What else is there to say? There's nothing else to say. But they don't realize that you have to read other fields to learn the relevant stuff like nutrition, toxicology, stress, hormones, and all that. Okay, Tom Wolfe continues. There was a time in the 1930s when magazine writers could actually make a good living. The Saturday Evening Post and Collier's both had 3 stories in each issue. These were usually entertaining and people really went for them. But then television came along. And, television kind of destroyed a lot of things. It diminished the radio audience and it diminished the reading audience. It made people stupid, the boob tube. Okay, now the internet is basically taking over from television as the current thing as of the time of this video in 2026. Okay, Tom Wolfe continues. People complain about my exclamation points, but I honestly think that's the way people think. I don't think that people think in essays. It's one exclamation point after another. Okay, that's it for part 1 on Tom Wolfe. Hope you found it helpful.